everybody, and welcome back to Michael in the Backyard. Behind me here I have my 2011 Impala. It is due for brakes. Little history on the brakes. I've had this car since it had 52,000 miles on it. It currently has 209,000 miles on it, I believe. Somewhere 208, 209. Anyway, well over 200. And last year, it was in September time frame, we were going down to South Carolina for vacation, and we ran into the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, I believe. Hit pretty heavy in Asheville. We go really near Asheville, heading down to where we go in South Carolina. The power in the area we were going to just came back on 2 days before we arrived. I tell you all that because I want to tell you that we got diverted in this car. We got diverted into other traffic areas. And it actually went through Smoky Mountain National Park, and the route was very hilly. A lot of up and downs, a lot of long downhill grades that we ended up going on, and that's the first time I've ever experienced brake fade. The brakes have been working perfectly all this time. I had just put on a new set of tires, literally 7,000 or 8,000 miles before the trip, so I had brand new tires on the car because I don't like getting caught in rain in mountainous areas, and I want to have good traction no matter what. And I probably had about 8,000, 9,000 miles left on my tires. If it was summertime, I would have continued to drive it. But since it was heading into winter, and I always like to have good solid tires under me in the wintertime, I went ahead and did it a few thousand miles early. If it would have been 9,000 left to go in March, I'd have rode those tires all summer. But anyway, going up down the hills, I started experiencing brake fade, and that's when you start to put on your brakes and you don't have as good of brakes as you had. And I started feeling this pulsing in the steering wheel and stuff like that. I hadn't felt that before. As they got hot, they pulsed more and the fade was worse. And then once we got out of the hilly areas and back on flat highway, the brakes worked absolutely fine and normal. Once they cooled down and all the pulsing went away and the fade went away. So at that point in time I thought, the brakes need done. That was a year ago. So just recently I've started noticing, and they've been fine ever since. Emergency stops and everything, they've been grabbing and doing everything they need to do. But I just knew that they needed to be done sooner or later. Recently I started noticing a little bit of pulse in the steering wheel. That was time. I'm like, okay, we got to get this thing updated and replaced. I'm doing all four corners on the car, all front and rear. So we're going to start off. I've got the passenger side jacked up in the air, just enough to get the wheel off. I've taken the brake fluid cap reservoir and I've just cracked it loose because when we force that piston back into the caliper, we're going to experience some fluid going back up into the reservoir, and we need to make sure that has room to come up, and we're going to keep an eye on that because it's actually down just a little bit and it's going to fill back up because the pad wears. When the pad wears, the piston comes out further, and that piston behind it fills up with fluid, which pulls from the reservoir up here and doesn't come back until we replace the pads. So let's get down here on the ground and start working on getting the tire off. Now, doing a brake job is relatively easy. Most people are afraid of it, and the auto places charge an arm and a leg to do brakes. Now, just like any job, you're one broken bolt away from a 2-hour job turning into an all-day job. All right. Wheel is off. I'm kind of curious what kind of condition the pads are in. I like nice wide tires. They'll stand up by themselves. I'll tip it so if it falls, it's going to just go against my car and not kill one of my kitty cats that are in here. All right, what do we got next? What's next? Yeah, there's definitely some wear and some grooving on the rotors. The pads actually look pretty strong yet. Everything's not in awful looking shape so far. So let's go ahead and try to remember. I could take the caliper off here, but I also want to take these Let me show you real quick. There's some bolts right here that allow this whole caliper to move in and out. I want to remove those. I can take those out and get the caliper out of the way. Then there's bolts that take this caliper bracket off. So these I want to take off just for the simple fact it's a good time. There's new boots that came with the kit. It's time to re-lube this area so this thing stays floaty, which is what you want. Brake lines, brake hoses all look good. No cracks, no breaks, nothing I'm worried about. So let me get a little impact on that. It happens to be 13 millimeter. And the other one we'll be taking off will be 15 millimeter. We'll see if the old Bauer or Hercules, it's not an impact, it's just a ratchet. Let's see, I don't know if I got enough room for this long joker. That's a short bolt that came out there. I was expecting something longer. I think it screws into the longer thing. That's fine. Nice thing is these are good plated bolts. They've never seized up on anything, which is awesome. Now this should allow me to, I think at this point I could get the caliper off. Yep. We're just going to rest that back here. Try your best not to let it hang by the hose. That's hard on it. But we can take a look at these pads real quick. Yeah, they were getting down there. They're getting thinner. That chipper spring had a little ways to go. But now I've done a brake job on the front before. So this is not a new event here for this car. If you're curious about pad thickness and wear, these are the replacement pads. You can see they're more than twice as thick here on the pad area. Look at that groove versus that groove. Hear that pecking sound? I've got to fix that. It's driving me crazy, and the chipper spring goes on the outside. Got to remember that. Chipper spring on the outside. So this one here I've got is an outside one. Does it have a chipper spring on both? We're going to go ahead and take this other. Boy, that pecking sound. Like a woodpecker stuck in my dash. It's the blend door actuator is what that is, making that racket. Another bolt in good shape. I put never seize on it last time. I can see it, evidence on it, of never seize on it. Because there again, I want to be able to service this thing. There again, this Impala is one of the easiest ones to do brakes on. So there's that pad, pretty much the same amount of wear on it. It looks like there's a chipper spring on both pads, which is nice. So we can knock that out. The rotor has there's one little torque screw right here. If you try to pull this off and beat on it, it won't come off until you get that one torque screw out. So it looks like this one is a T30. In case you're going out just to buy specific tools to do this specific job, that helps you. Sometimes this could be the worst part, is getting that screw out, because it can be pretty stuck sometimes. And then in that case, you just drill the head off of it. Just take your drill bit and just drill the head off of it. And honestly, you don't have to worry about putting it back in there. There you go. I'll put a little never seize on that before I put it back together. So just that simply, yeah, there's definitely grooved rotors and whatnot here. It was time. It was definitely time. We weren't in any danger. I actually had to make an emergency stop. Somebody stopped short in front of me, and I hit the brakes hard, and they grabbed, and they stopped stone cold dead. It did a great job. All right. So this is the part I was talking about that has a little plunger dealie in here. A little rubber ring on it to keep things dry. That's what I want to clean up. And this is what keeps things floating. It comes with a little tube of grease in your kit. This kit I bought anyway. So we'll clean these up and put that back together. We also got new springs to put in here. So we'll knock these off and put some new springs in here. See that little guy? Got new ones of those to put in. We'll do all that and then we'll be ready to stick it back together. I think the boots I got are new boots for these. But these boots, they look in fantastic shape. They're not cracked or anything. I think I'm just going to leave those on there. All right, there's a little packet of grease there. So what I'm going to do is take a little brake clean. Because the inside of that thing is going to be clean. But we're just going to... There's not a lot of room for extra grease and whatnot going on in there. So we're just going to give this thing a good little wipe down. And this square on here is just to be able to hold it when you're backing that one nut off, the bolt off that we took out, if you need to. So a little brake cleaner, wipe it down. Keep it clean. Don't want any debris in there. All right. Always have you plenty of towels handy when you're doing stuff like this, and keep your hands clean, fingers clean. Here again, this little packet is enough to do both sides, according to what they sent us. There again, this has already done a great job of keeping the moisture out of things. And this is just looks like just a gray type of never sees is what it looks like. So we'll stick these back in. Work them around a little bit. Then that little boot will snap back over. You have to burp it a little bit. Get the air out so it'll stay in there. Get that boot back over it real nice and tight. Sealed up like that. I'll share with you the parts that I bought, what grade I bought, because I actually paid up a little bit and got a little bit better grade of part. You can go pretty cheap and it'll work, or you can upgrade and spend a little more dollars and get a better quality brake shoe and rotor, and I'll show you the difference. Because I've done this on my other car and I actually like the results. Alright, we'll stick these back in. New ones came with the kit. They seem to be a little snug on the end, so I'm going to knock a little bit of metal off of there. I've run into that before. Hold them up against the old ones. Yeah, barely too long. We just knocked a little off the end there on both sides. Let's see how these look when I put them in. Now they go in, whoops, and they go right out. One thing you want to make sure is never have any grease on your hands while you're doing this job. You don't want to get your pads greasy, you don't want to get your rotors greasy. There we go. There, got them worked in. Set those down gently. We got to push the caliper back in, so I use the old brake pad. So we'll take this and just kind of hang it right there. I'll put the old brake pad on it. I'll put a C-clamp on here and we'll just push these back. Now they've got spreaders and stuff you can stick in here to do this job, but you know, C-clamp works just as well for me. I don't have one of those brake spreaders, so this is what I'm going to use. See if I can get it back here on this little bolt, just to try to get a little bit more of an angle on it. The goal is to push both pistons back evenly. And you'll notice if they don't go back easy, you might have a piston that's a little, see, these are just going in really easy. And take it slow, don't get crazy with it. Because you're gonna check, I'm gonna check the fluid on this one after I push this one back to make sure the fluid's not getting ready to overflow the brake master cylinder. There, those are all the way back. And one thing you want to make sure you do before you take off out of the driveway, while you're still in park, pump them brakes. Push them pistons back out to meet the rotors. Now we're time to put a new rotor on. Now you'll notice the difference on these rotors than the ones I took off. One of the facts is that it has a coating on it. It's a rust-free coating to keep this from all getting all rusty and crusty. And all this won't get as rusty as fast, and it'll look nicer for longer. And that's actually not a big deal overall. I'm gonna put a little bit of that brake lube on this little screw here. And this screw just basically holds things in place. It doesn't do any other work than hold it in place while you're assembling the rest of the caliper setup. Just kind of keeps things up tight. But I put these on my other car, on the boss's car, and you look at it a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, probably 3 years later, and you start seeing just little evidence of some rust, but otherwise the caliper is really, really clean. All right, so this is ready to go back on now. It goes on in this direction. So we'll set that back in here. I want to grab some never sees. There's a little more dab on these bolts because those really, really came out the way you want them to. You didn't have to fight it. Now torque these down to the proper torque spec. I'm not going to give you that information. You look it up. Because I don't want to be responsible for you doing something wrong because your car is slightly different than mine. That's just for my own protection, so to speak. All right. Well, squeeze these in so they're up against the rotor. We're ready to set the caliper back in place. So I'll take this, get it back straddling all that. Just like that, your brakes are installed. Let's go check the reservoir real quick. And it looks like it did come up a touch. Yeah, we're in good shape. Plenty of room for the other caliper. I like that. I always put never sees. These have got some nice coating on this particular hub. I like just to put another little bit of little anti-seize on there. Don't want to lose the rest of our packet. Enough to do the other side. Let's see here. Where are we? I'm just doing some light rattle tats on that. I'll torque it once I get it on the ground here. And this has been pretty much in real time. I'm not going to cut out a lot here so you know exactly what kind of time it's going to take to do a job like this. We got El Torco out here. There again, I'm not going to give you the wheel torque spec. They're out there all over the internet. A lot of people will do that. True mechanic shops. All right, lug nut to be tight. Well, that's how you do it, folks. That's one side done in, I don't know. Let me look at the timer on the camera here. From the time I started this camera, this roll, I think I had to shut off on me once, but we're at 20 minutes and 24 seconds at this point. So it doesn't take a lot to do brakes. Now, if you've got a really rusty, really nasty, really unkept situation up front, it could be a lot worse. Now you can look inside here and you can see all the shiny that's going to be right here. It's not going to rust. This will wear and stay shiny because the brake pads run around it, but the outside edges around here will stay shiny, and it just, you know, adds to the wheel. Now normally you like to see dark back there because it really accents, you know, contrast, but who cares about that? We could paint those calipers red and make them look like Brembo brakes or something silly like that. These brakes are good. This brake should be good for another, I don't know, 50 to 80 to 100,000 miles, depending on how you drive. Highway miles don't add up to the brakes, add to brake wear as fast as city miles and stop and go traffic. And I do more highway than stop and go, so I'm going to feel a lot better. I'm not going to bore you with the other side. We'll be back when I'm working on the rear end, because the rear end has the emergency brake built into it, and it could be a little different beast, and I'm going to share with you how I do those. Alrighty, we finished up the front end last night. I'm going to show you something real quick. The fluid level has come right back up, because when you push them pistons back, it starts to fill it back up. I don't know how well you can see this, but there's a black right there. It says Max on it right there. So we've had the cap loose. We've done one side of the rear. So only got one left to go. But if you find yourself having to fill your fluid up at some time in the future, chances are your brake pads are worn down pretty thin, or you've got a leak. Those are basically the only two options. It doesn't just evaporate. I was going to show you one of the rear pads that I pulled off. And so you look at these right here. See the thickness difference? So this still had some life left in it. Not a lot, but it had some. But I just wanted to show you that. They weren't overdue, but we also didn't get down to the very end. But I got a lot of life out of these pads and rotors that I put on many, many moons ago. I've got to say it's got to be, I want to say between 70 and 100,000 miles ago. I honestly don't think I did. Well, it's been over 100,000 miles since I've done the transmission. No, it was at 124. It's between 70 and 100,000 miles. So they do last a while, but I also drive like a freaking old man too. All right. I'm going to get down here because the rear shoes, or rear pads, not shoes, these are pads, are a little different than the fronts. You ever wonder if an office chair is ever needed in your shop? Well, you can set your tools on it while you're working on something like this. The rears are similar but different. Similar in the fact that they've got pads. This one still has, I'm going to get you in a little tighter here. We got some natural light coming in from my window. Hopefully that's enough light for you guys to see everything in here. Really would be a shame if you couldn't. There again, the T30 comes back into play right here. We'll go ahead and knock that screw out first. When I put this screw back in, I put never seize on it. There again, this screw is only necessary for, I think, for the factory assembly, plus it helps hold the rotor in place while you're putting the rest of the garb back on. That's all. You can see that little rust on the tip there. We'll coat that with some never seize, so 100,000 miles from now we can do the brake job again. I'm gonna go ahead and pull. This is there's 4 bolts again. One that holds the actual caliper on, and two that hold the caliper on, and 2 that hold this caliper bracket on. Break that one loose. Other one's down here lower. Some people might complain about the Harbor Freight tools, but I've got this Pittsburgh, believe it or not, that's got this. Dad turned me on to that. He got one, and it says extends, can't remember how many, something and a half inches. But yeah, from that to that, it gives you a lot of leverage. Plus it's a 1/4 inch drive and a 3/8 drive. I don't know, for the beginning mechanic and people that are wanting to do their own work on their cars and whatnot, it's kind of a hard one to beat. There again, when you start building up your tool arsenal, So you can be able to save yourself some money. You're going to spend money, but you know what it cost me to do, whoops, wrong. What it cost me to do this brake job, or what it would have cost you, easily buys all the tools you need to do the job. And then the next brake job you do, it just gets that much cheaper. That's all there is to it. Now, it looks like any job, tools or whatever you got, you're literally one bolt away from a 2-hour job turning into a all-day event. We're not far from being done with this. All we've got's this side to do and we're done. Okay, we got the 2 caliper bolts out. We're going to put never sees on those when we put them back in. Absolutely have to. We'll slide that caliper off. And then we can take the caliper mount bolts off. There again, I've had this car since it had 52,000 miles on it. Again, I repeat that. And I know all the maintenance has been done to it since then. So nothing here comes as an absolute surprise to me when I'm running into things. You know, I've had this car for a while. You can see those brake pads are a little thinner. But what we're going to do, we'll pull these off, re-grease these. We'll put new little clips in there if your kit came with clips. And new pads. But yeah, that bearing sounds fine. We're just going to run with it. Now, the part I want to show you that's much different, I'm trying to get you in here the best I can. See this little doohickey here? This one you got to turn to get it to go back in. You don't just squeeze it back in because your emergency brake is tied into this. Now, I have a tool that I made. You can buy these tools relatively cheap off of Amazon or whatnot. This one's too big for the job almost, but it's just a little spanner like this that I've got into my ratchet that'll fit right in here and grab those little ears, and I can turn this clockwise, and it's clockwise on both sides. And you can see that piston, it just does grab enough of it. Goes right back in, and you just keep going in until it stops going in, basically. And the other thing you want to make sure happens is once it's all the way in, whoops, go around a little bit more. And this is important. Make sure it's pointing this way. Why? Because on this inner pad that has the chirper spring on it, has a little pin right here. And that pin fits into here. And what that does is when you activate the emergency brake, every time you activate the emergency brake, it wants to unscrew and keep this adjusted out so the emergency brake is self-adjusting. That's what that's all about. That's the main difference between the two jobs. And when I say two jobs, that means front and rear. So we'll set you back over here on this little tabletop. See if we can get you in some action here. Now here I'm going to go ahead and the chirper spring is on the inside toward these, in case you were wondering. I'm just going to knock the pads out. Here's the old rubbers off the other side. So was that one. We'll take the little spring clips off. They're the same for each side on this particular model. Throw those in the steel scrap. Now I'd like to hear some people's feedback here. Got me a little wire brush. I'm just cleaning out the grooves here. Just getting any rust or corrosion buildup. These look pretty clean. Some of them can get pretty gnarly. Now you see how everything on here is just dry, dry, dry. There's nothing lubricated out here. And I watched a few videos on how other people do it. And I'm not going to disagree with what they're doing. This is just how I'm going to do it. You watch some other videos and you figure out your own way. But people are coating. I mean, I've watched several videos of people just coating the crap out of all this metal in here. And I don't know why. It's dry as a popcorn fart when you take it apart. And it's been like that for 70 to 80,000 miles. And they show putting grease. I'll show you the metal pieces. These are the metal pieces that go in here. So these are, I believe they're made out of stainless. I only say that because the ones you take out aren't rusty and they're actually just tired and dirty more than anything. Now I'll take my little screwdriver here and I try to get in here and just kind of tap these down in the corners kind of tight. Just like that. Makes it easier. I'm not getting carried away. Not trying to reshape the metal. Just trying to get these little clippity clips back in. Clippity 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 clop. You can get them started in by hand, but then this just does a nice job of seating it. You might be asking what these are for. It's like, back in the 70s, they didn't have these little clippity clips. And yeah, and every time you hit a bump, your calipers, you could hear, if you had your windows down, you hear this clatter, 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 clatter. Because the brake shoes were just floating in there. Floating. Tripper spring goes toward this direction here. So you want to make sure you get this in the right direction. And these are kind of spring loaded, so you kind of have to get the springs compressed a little bit. Kind of watch it so you don't bend them up or get them jammed up in a certain way. But once you get them in there, I just get them started flush on each side here. That's it. And the cool part is those springs, they hold it in place. Now, back to the topic of grease. There's guys that are just coating these things on these little stainless pieces, coating this and coating this in grease. And I'm not a fan of that. I'm not doing that on mine. I have never done it on mine. And some of you might be going, well, Michael, you're supposed to put grease on there so it can move. Well, you know what helps is when you put the pad in the right direction. The boss is out here. Everybody behave. Straighten up over there. Bay number 3. Better get your shit together. The boss is here. Oh wait, it's just me still. I better get mine together then. All I got is one side left, boss. This side. Brake job's done. Gonna tappy tap tap right here. Hope I see what's going on. There. We got that down in there flush now. I'm gonna kind of wiggle some of this stuff around here a little bit and then blow this off. Just to get any loose debris off of it. Then we're going to go ahead and pull this out. Pull this out. Had one of these on the other one that was a little stiff. So we got new rubbers. Where are you going, boss? Bring your Faye out again? I had her out with Mercury a little bit ago. Yeah. They were out for a while. But I took them in once I fed the cat so she wouldn't eat cat food. All right. Huh? Oh. So we're going to get the brake clean. Some people might use solvent to clean these up, which is fine. It's slow drying. It still dries, but nice thing about brake clean is there is absolutely no residue left. This one, the purple one here, that's toward the chirper side, has this little rubber dealie on it, which my kit came with a replacement rubber. So we're cleaning those up. I'm also going to flush out the pocket they were in. Nice thing about brake clean is once it gets all over your pads and stuff, it ain't going to hurt a thing. It's dry as grease free. I'm going to blow it dry. Now, I'm using the supplied grease that came with it, and I'm only putting the grease on these pins. Oh, why aren't you putting the grease on it where everybody else is putting the grease on it? Because I'll explain in just a second here. Let me focus. I'm gonna put a little bit here and smear it around. Get this little rubber boot pressed back on here. Now, there's probably brake guys out there just losing their absolute minds. And I tell you what, you guys do you. I'm not telling you how to do it. This is just a what I do. I put a little bit on here. We get the new rubber booty. So a little grease there helps it pop into place. We'll put a little more grease on the pin. Kind of work it around. And then we'll sneak this back in its home. Once you get it seated in there, work it around a little bit, moves freely. Get it in there, pop your boot back on right there. So now you got that assembly. I'd say rinse and repeat, but we've already rinsed it. This cleaned off. A little bit around the boot area. As you guys are seeing, this job doesn't take very long. This is a lot of real-time stuff. Not shortcutting things, not trying to cut you out of it. I'll cut out the dead spots, but when action's happening, you're here in the action. We'll take the last little bit of this out of this one. They only give you one packet for the whole rear end. All right. All right. Kind of got a little extra here. I'm going to put a little more on this one. Yeah, it feels pretty good. Now, the grease. Why don't I put grease on this part? Well, because it's dry. It's dry right now. It was dry while it wore the whole pads down. You ain't gonna tell me this dried out in the last 10 miles that I drove it. This has been dry for a long time. And if you put a bunch of whole grease on there, and say you live on a gravel road or you travel on gravel roads, which happens to me occasionally, what does grease do all over these areas that have dust in the air? What does grease do? It collects all that dust. And in my opinion, creates more problem than just leaving it dry. This doesn't rust. This is painted. This is going to move together. Once it's settled in, it makes incremental movements. And the hydraulic pressure that you're placing on these will keep it moving. And some people might go, well, Michael, that's it's got to be able to relax and relieve itself. It does. The mechanical advantage everything has here will relieve itself. All right? Okay. Glad we had this talk. Now, get my hammer out. Put some Never Sees back on here again. There again, this, you might not think this is a big deal. It's like, well, I'll have impacts and stuff whenever I have to take this wheel off again. No, maybe not. Let's not forget about, we drive down the highway and we get a flat tire. You got to pull this tire off, so you want to be able to break those lug nuts loose. Yeah? You didn't think about that, did you? Well, that's what I'm here for. To remind you of the obvious things that we tend to forget about. Okay, brake rotor. Now these coated rotors we've been putting on here do not have any cosmoline or anything to keep them from rusting. They're already their own anti-rust is coated on there, so they don't have to do that for the long boat trip to keep things from rusting. But if you have regular ground rotors where you see the grind marks and no coating or anything, then you want to make sure you use brake clean and get all the grease and oil and manufacturing deposits off of the brake rotor. I'll put a little screw back in. Actually, this is a composite ratchet Harbor Freight made by Pittsburgh. Not a lifetime warranty thing. Maybe it is. I don't remember if these do or not. But boy, I tell you, they're really kind of fun to use. They're inexpensive overall. And they got a really pretty fine ratcheting thing going on. And they're really lightweight. Not that weight's a huge problem. All right, there we go. Set this back in place. Never ceases to amaze me how well it works. Especially when you go to take stuff apart years later and you still can. You don't break bolts. And if you guys stay to the end of this video, you'll be able to see me fix the little... Now you're going to see why that has that little notch in it. It's going to fit right over... Whoops, I got to pull the pads the rest of the way in to meet the rotor. There we go. Now this should go in and line up with that. Now I can get this in place, I'll bet. Yep. The greatest of ease. Daring young man doing his brakes with ease. There it goes. Just need a little wiggle. I have to hold the little things that we put in there and greased up. We're going to hold them still because they're wanting to very freely rotate. So they got flats on them just for that purpose, so you can shouldn't take much to hold them in place. And once they bite up against that metal, it won't spin on you. Once you hit the brakes once, these will free up pretty easily. Oh yeah, beauty, Clark. I gotta torque both sides since I had it up in the air from using I actually used the trailer hitch back there to pick it up. So I'll have to finish torquing both sides. Alrighty folks, that concludes this episode. Well, almost concludes it. There is a tidbit here I want to throw at the end. I don't know how useful it's going to be for most people, but we've completed the brake job. I did close off, don't forget to close off the brake fluid cap. Move my chair out of the way here. But I want you to hear this. Hear that? Hear that noise? Coming from under the dash, behind the dash. We're gonna do that next. I've been dreading this. I've been putting up with this noise for over 4 weeks. I'm gonna show you what the parts look like real quick here. While the car plays this melodious tone of the woodpecker in the dash. This is a blend door actuator. Has a little gear motor, has a little motor, a little gear drive, a little control thingy here. And this thing will time out like that and quit making that noise so you can drive your car in peace. But when it gets cold out, you can't bring the heat into the car. It's just kind of like, I don't know where the things need to go. This is the other style. There are 2 styles in this car. I believe 2 of them are this style and 1 of them this style. And as you can see here, there are 3 bolts that hold this in place and 1 electrical plug. Now, with that being said, I'm gonna move this car around so I can get in here with this door wide open because I gotta drop the glove box out and make it make the sound again because I'm pretty sure it's the one on the left-hand side of the glove box. I believe there's one on the left hand, there's one on the right hand, and there's one on the right-hand side of the driver's side of the dash underneath. None of them are fun to get at. Little tiny wrenches, little tiny sockets. I have bought since then, since I've done these last, I got a little tiny ratchet. That might actually be pretty key in getting this done. I hope. We'll see. Whoops. Sorry. Here we go. We're getting over here. So I've got that little guy right there. Who's that made by? It's Titan. And then I forget if it takes like a little 6mm. I can't remember if I had to use a deep wall to get in there, but let's get in there and I'll get a light in there the best I can. I'll use one of these here fan dancy lights that are really, really bright. So I can kind of hopefully show you what it is. So if you clicked on this thumbnail because it's a 2011 Impala, or you just like to watch stuff that I do, part of my regular viewership, or the title is going to be something like, I need a brake, B-R-A-K-E, and there's a woodpecker in my dash. Hopefully some of that will capture the attention of people and help people fix their cars. Brake job is completely done with this car. I'm 100% happy with how it turned out. Everything was really easy overall. And there again, this is just the way I do the brakes. I'm not saying that this way everybody does the brakes. So take your best judgment. I've had this car a long time and I've done lots of brake jobs. Not as many brake jobs as the professionals do. I'm just saying that out loud. They do things a certain way because that's the way they've been taught and that's how they do it. My years of doing it for myself has taught me certain ways to do it. And it's been successful, so that's what I'll continue to do. All right, let's move the car around. And I want to try to get it shifted over. I'll try to get it shifted over as far to the left as I can so I can still get out. I'll probably back it in a little deeper so I can get that door thrown wide open. Some people might say, why do you have an office chair in your shop? Because sometimes I sit out here and watch TV. Okay? Is that a problem? And sometimes I sit down and do different jobs out here. All right, I think I can, as long as I can sneak over here and get back to here, I can get this door open and get out. Yeah. Oh, I've been dreading this job. But it will be nice to go out to my car in the morning, not hear the woodpecker going crazy, and actually have heat and defrost and all the things that should working. Because like last night, it got down to 20. I'm gonna have to move that over. It got down to 29 degrees. It was cold. All right, let me move this out of the way. The noise is terrible. Some of you are probably hearing that noise right now and going, how? See, it just stops. It times out. It must time out. It's not that it fixes itself or the blend door actuator gets in the position it needs to be in according to, let's see here. I think that'll give me enough room to play. We'll try that. Some of you are probably thinking, I'd never let him work on my car because he just don't have the room to do it. And for that, I thank you because I don't like doing customer work. I pretty much don't ever do it. Okay, it's going to be tight getting around, in and out, but the other side is where it's going to pay off. Okay, it is the one I suspected. You take your glove box, just bend this down a little bit and it flops open, but right back there you can see the little wire coming out, that little barcode. That's what we're trying to get at. So that's what we're gonna remove. All right, I had to show you a couple things here. The head of the bolt on this, it's actually like a plastic screw. It's metal, but goes in the plastic. It's a 7/32 head. And this little deep wall and this little wrench was perfect for it. There is only 2 screws. When you're looking at it, it's in this position in the car. There again, this is the barcode I showed you earlier. This just pilots over a little nub. This lines up with the little blend door itself. And then there's 2 screws, one here and one here. And with the glove box folded down, you can reach in there and get it. It wasn't as bad as I remembered. I remembered having one of these that were just an absolute nightmare. This one wasn't one of those nightmare ones. So, job done and hoorah. Time to take it for a test drive and see if my heat and defrost and everything goes where it's supposed to go. Then we'll flip it around. I'm gonna change the oil, but not in this video for you guys to see because you've seen that before. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative and helpful. This is Michael saying, if it ain't broke, fix it till it is, and we'll see you in the next video. And no more woodpeckers in the dash, and no more pulsations in the brakes. It's gonna be beautiful. It'll be like a brand new car. Oh yeah.